Breton also talks about the ethical implications of this hidden teaching,
Mm-hmm.
specifically the concept of karma, the idea that our actions have consequences.
Of course, yeah.
He argues that understanding this interconnectedness
Yeah.
naturally leads to a more ethical and compassionate way of life.
What I find so compelling is that Breton isn't simply preaching morality.
Right.
He's suggesting that ethical behavior is a natural outgrowth of grasping this interconnectedness of all things.
Interesting.
When we see ourselves as part of a larger web of relationships, our actions naturally align with the well-being of the whole.
So it's not about following rules out of fear
Right.
or seeking rewards, but about acting from a deeper understanding of how our actions ripple outward. It's
Exactly.
impacting both ourselves and others.
And this insight feels more relevant than ever in today's world,
It does.
where we're facing these complex global challenges that demand cooperation and compassion on a huge scale.
It's like Brenton's offering a framework for understanding our interconnectedness.
Yeah.
And acting in ways that benefit not just ourselves, but, the entire web of life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and bring in some insights from Manly P. Hall's The Initiates of the Flame.
Sounds good.
Hall uses symbolism to illustrate the stages of spiritual development.
Okay.
He talks about things like playing cards,
Oh, wow.
the Ark of the Covenant, even the pyramid. It implies a foundation built on something real, something authentic.
And the core values that they outline, empathy, authenticity, resilience, self-discovery, creative expression, spiritual connection.
It's like they took Carnage 1nOnly's own journey and turned it into a blueprint for building a community.
Yeah, and it's not just a vague idea either. They have specific practices and rituals that they've outlined.
It's very detailed for a fictional concept.
It is. It makes you wonder if someone is actually trying to build this in the real world.
Wouldn't that be something?
One of the things that strikes me about this whole journey of his is how he blends the ancients with the modern.
Oh, absolutely.
He's drawing from these esoteric traditions, he's exploring consciousness, but he's also talking about things like ADHD and struggling to find connection in a digital age.
He's not rejecting modern life, but he's also looking beyond it.
And maybe that's what resonates with so many people.
It's like he's speaking to this very contemporary experience of feeling lost and overwhelmed and disconnected.
But offering these solutions that are both ancient and incredibly relevant to our lives today.
Exactly. He's saying, look, I'm just like you. I'm struggling. I'm searching.
But there's a way through this,
A way to find meaning and connection in this world that often feels chaotic and isolating.
It's about embracing the pain, finding your voice, and building communities that support your growth.
That's really what it comes down to.
Okay, so let's dive into a Psalms now,
Let's do it.
because I think that's where his journey really comes to life. It normalizes the struggle, reduces stigma, creates a space where people feel safe to be vulnerable.
Exactly. It's so important to feel like you're not alone.
It's interesting how they reframe the idea of a divine voice and ground of trust.
How so?
Instead of a singular deity, they see it as this collective consciousness, shaped by the pain and triumphs of humanity.
That's a really interesting concept.
It's like they're saying that the divine isn't out there somewhere. It's within us, within our shared human experience.
I like that.
And it aligns with his exploration of consciousness, right? He talks about accessing different levels of awareness through sound and breath work.
It's like he's trying to tap into that collective consciousness himself.
And maybe ground up trust is a way to externalize that process, to create a shared space for accessing that divine voice.
So it's not just about believing in something, it's about putting those beliefs into action, into practice, into community.
What resonates with you about all of this?
I think the emphasis on creative expression as a tool for healing and connection, that's something we can all explore.
Regardless of our beliefs or backgrounds.
Exactly. Whether it's writing, painting, dancing, even just having deep conversations,
There's power in expressing ourselves authentically.
And that authenticity often comes from our struggles,
From those moments of vulnerability.
Yeah, where we connect with our true selves and with others who have walked similar paths.
So maybe we don't need to join a fictional religion to find meaning and connection.
We can create our own ground-up trust principles.
Our own resonance gatherings. Our own ways to turn pain into purpose.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced a time in your life where facing a difficult situation actually led to some unexpected growth or insight?
Oh, many times. I think those challenging moments are often the ones that teach us the most about ourselves.
It's like the darkness reveals the light within us.
Exactly. And that brings us back to Carnage One Only's idea of resonance.
Right.
It's not just about pain, it's about what that pain allows us to see, to feel, to understand about ourselves and the world around us.
It's about finding the meaning in the mess.
The wisdom in the wound.
And that's a journey that takes courage, vulnerability, a willingness to embrace the full spectrum of human experience.
Light in the shadow.
It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
But the rewards can be profound.
And speaking of resilience, one of the things that really struck me about Carnage One Only Psalms is how he keeps getting back up, even after being knocked down by life.
You can really feel that determination in his writing.
He talks about experiencing betrayal, loss, heartbreak, but he never gives up on himself or his desire to create something positive in the world.
He has this unwavering belief in the power of personal growth.
Yeah.
He writes about learning from his mistakes, breaking free from negative programming, and taking control of his own narrative.
It's a really powerful message of hope and empowerment.
Especially for people who are struggling.
It's funny, even though he's talking about some pretty heavy stuff,
Yeah.
there's also this sense of humor that comes through in his work.
Oh, absolutely. He doesn't take himself too seriously.
Yeah.
Like when he talks about the fool's feast, where they feast on folly.
Oh, right.
It's like he's saying, hey, we're all going to mess up sometimes. Let's not beat ourselves up about it.
Let's just laugh at our mistakes and keep moving forward.
Exactly.
It's an important reminder.
In these gatherings, they're not just sharing stories, they're potentially co-creating a new reality based on empathy and understanding.
That's kind of mind-blowing.
It is. It's like group therapy, but instead of just talking, you're painting, you're writing, you're maybe even making music together.
That's so cool. So it's not just about talking about your feelings, it's about expressing them through art.
And it aligns with his own approach, right? He draws from ancient wisdom, but also modern psychology, even things like breathwork techniques.
Right. So it's not just sitting in a circle chanting.
Not at all. They're engaging in practices that Carnage One Only himself uses for personal growth.
It's like they're taking his toolbox and making it available to everyone.
And then they have these artistic pilgrimages to places of natural energy.
Oh yeah, those sound really interesting. What do you think those would look like?
Well, I imagine they're taking that search for meaning, which he talks about so often in his Psalms, and turning it into a shared experience.
So it's not just internal reflection, it's about connecting with something larger than yourself out in the world.
Exactly. And it goes back to that idea of resonance. How our experiences, especially the difficult ones, can make us more attuned to the world around us.
So you're not just going on a pilgrimage to see beautiful scenery, you're going to feel its energy more deeply because you've faced your own inner storms.
It's about grounding those abstract concepts in real-world experience.
It makes me wonder, could something like this actually exist in the real world?
I think elements of it already do.
Really?
Look at the rise of mindfulness practices, the growing interest in alternative spirituality, the way people are craving authentic connection.
He's not running away from the darkness, he's leaning into it.
He actually writes, words are not mere sounds, they are spells, casting reality into being.
Whoa.
He's very intentional about that.
That's powerful. So for him, language is not just expression. It's almost like a tool.
A tool for transformation.
Right. It's not just words. He's also very deliberate in his exploration of ancient wisdom and esoteric practices.
Absolutely. He talks about things like breath work and sound healing and even exploring things like activating the pineal gland through these practices.
Yeah, there's a real depth to it.
And I think this all ties back to his desire to help others, which is something we see even in his early life.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, he's talked about how when he was younger, he wanted to be a cop or a comedian, both professions that in different ways are about making a positive impact on people.
That's true. Never thought about it like that.
But it seems like this desire to help others stems from a deep sense of empathy, likely rooted in his own experiences.
So his pain is almost driving him to help others.
It's possible. I mean, he talks about being diagnosed with ADHD at 6, struggling with mental health addiction, facing loss and betrayal in relationships.
Yeah, he's very open about all of it.
Very raw and honest about it in his songs.
In one psalm, he even describes school as a place of just obedience, not questioning.
Right. And even when he achieves success, he writes about tears pouring down my face even as the sun is shining. It's like he's challenging us to rethink our relationship with pain,
Instead of seeing it as the enemy.
He's asking us to see it as a teacher, a guide, even a source of creative power.
It's a pretty radical shift in perspective.
It is, but I think it has the potential to transform how we approach all of life's challenges.
And it connects back to that idea of resilience.
Oh, absolutely. He's all about getting back up after being knocked down, you know?
Breaking free from those negative patterns.
It's like he's saying, don't let your struggles define you.
Use them as fuel to become a stronger, more authentic version of yourself.
Such a powerful message.
It really is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Carnage 1nOnly, what are some key takeaways you think our listener can apply to their own life?
Well, I think first and foremost, don't be afraid to lean into your pain.
Okay.
It's not something to be avoided. It's a source of wisdom and potential growth.
So face it head on.
And then embrace creative expression as a tool for healing and connection.
Find a way to express yourself authentically.
Whether that's through writing or painting or music or dance or just having those deep conversations.
Right. It's about finding what works for you.
And lastly, remember, you're not alone in this journey. There are others who have walked similar paths.
And there's strength in finding community and support.
Exactly.
Beautifully said. I would also add that Carnage 1n only encourages us to question everything.
Oh, yes.
To be curious, to seek wisdom from both ancient and modern sources.
It implies a foundation built on something real, something authentic.
And the core values that they outline, empathy, authenticity, resilience, self-discovery, creative expression, spiritual connection.
It's like they took Carnage 1nOnly's own journey and turned it into a blueprint for building a community.
Yeah, and it's not just a vague idea either. They have specific practices and rituals that they've outlined.
It's very detailed for a fictional concept.
It is. It makes you wonder if someone is actually trying to build this in the real world.
Wouldn't that be something?
One of the things that strikes me about this whole journey of his is how he blends the ancients with the modern.
Oh, absolutely.
He's drawing from these esoteric traditions, he's exploring consciousness, but he's also talking about things like ADHD and struggling to find connection in a digital age.
He's not rejecting modern life, but he's also looking beyond it.
And maybe that's what resonates with so many people.
It's like he's speaking to this very contemporary experience of feeling lost and overwhelmed and disconnected.
But offering these solutions that are both ancient and incredibly relevant to our lives today.
Exactly. He's saying, look, I'm just like you. I'm struggling. I'm searching.
But there's a way through this,
A way to find meaning and connection in this world that often feels chaotic and isolating.
It's about embracing the pain, finding your voice, and building communities that support your growth.
That's really what it comes down to.
Okay, so let's dive into a Psalms now.
Let's do it.
Because I think that's where his journey really comes to life.